The film begins with Frank, a skilled assassin, taking on a new job to eliminate a billionaire. He quickly gathers his team for a meeting to strategize the assassination. During the discussion, team member Davis raises concerns about the lack of an exit strategy if things go wrong, but Frank assures him that the plan is foolproof. He then instructs the team to book separate flights to the target's location. Meanwhile, in Washington, ex-cop Ree is visited by a police officer who informs him about his son's recent troubles. Later, as Ree attempts to guide his son towards a better path, the boy lashes out, blaming him for his mother's death. Undeterred, Ree joins his son for a game of basketball and suggests a camping trip to strengthen their bond. Concurrently, Frank and Davis confront their billionaire target, pushing him into oncoming traffic, resulting in his death. Afterward, Frank rents a house from a realtor. That night, as he drives to execute the next phase of their plan, he updates his team on their initial success. However, while en route to eliminate the next target, he collides with a distracted driver, leading to an accident that destroys his car and leaves him unconscious. He was quickly taken to the hospital, and as the doctors prepared for surgery, they discovered a gun in his clothing, prompting them to notify the police. Once Frank regained consciousness, he found himself handcuffed to the hospital bed with the chief of police ready to interrogate him. The chief noted that his ID was fake, and after checking his fingerprints, they learned he was a former government-trained assassin turned freelancer. When questioned about his presence in Washington, Frank remained silent. As the chief left, he warned Frank that 2 officers would guard his room to prevent escape. Afterward, the chief instructed the officers to maintain their watch until morning. The next day, an FBI agent briefed an NSA officer about Frank's case, mentioning that higher-ups were interested due to his background as a top-secret agent. The NSA officer agreed to assist, but immediately called a superior named Miles to inform him that Frank's identity was compromised. Miles ordered her to contain the situation. Meanwhile, at the hospital, while a nurse tended to Frank's wounds, he managed to steal her phone to notify his teammates about his predicament. The teammates argue about rescuing him or leaving him to the police. Davis insists on abandoning Frank, but the others remind him they need to rescue him to get paid. The next day, news reports cover the assassination of billionaire Ray. He and his son prepare for breakfast before their camping trip. As they drive through the wilderness to their campsite, Frank is also being transported by police through the same area. After parking, the father and son head into the forest. Meanwhile, the police encounter a large truck blocking the road and stop. A suspicious car behind them also halts. One officer approaches the truck driver, but is shot dead. Chaos ensues, allowing Frank to tackle the officer beside him. The police car suddenly veers off a hill and plunges into a river, but Frank and the officer continue to struggle inside the flooded vehicle. After seeing this, Frank's teammate descends the hill to assist him. After some struggle, Frank seizes the gun from the officer and shoots him. He then pulls the officer from the sinking car to ensure his safety. Meanwhile, Ray and his son cross a bridge and notice the 2 men trying to swim to safety. Ray jumps into the river to rescue them. Once saved, the officer tells Ray that Frank is a prisoner and needs to be handcuffed. As Ray attempts to take the handcuffs and gun, Frank struggles, but Ray manages to grab the gun. Tragically, the officer dies from his wounds, leaving Ray puzzled about what to do with Frank. He tells his son to call 911 while aiming the gun at Frank, instructing him to get his phone from his backpack. When his son says there's no service, Ray decides to take Frank to the highway where there is signal. Frank warns him it's a bad idea since his teammates are searching the forest for him. He threatens to kill Ray and his son if they don't let him go. Hearing this, the son urges his father to let Frank escape, saying they have the gun. However, the father insists on taking Frank to the highway, leaving Frank with no choice but to comply. As they leave the riverbank, the officer's body stays behind while they move through the forest toward the highway. Ree checks his phone for service, while Frank's teammates discover the officer's corpse, speculating if Frank drowned. One teammate finds 3 footprints by the river, suggesting 2 people took Frank hostage. Meanwhile, another group of police arrives to manage the situation. As the father-son duo walks through the forest, they spot a road with officers. Ray tells his son to run and get their attention. However, the son sees one officer aiming a gun at another and realizes the officers are corrupt. He quickly returns to his father to warn him. The officers then contact Frank's teammates for updates, who are tracking Frank's trail. Ray, spotting the corrupt officers, decides to climb a hill for phone service but sees Frank's teammates coming down, unsure of their next move. He opts to take Frank on a different path in the forest. Meanwhile, the teammates question how they missed Frank while following the trail, concluding that whoever has him must have strayed off the path. With this in mind, they choose to track the new trail. Suddenly, an argument erupts between the corrupt officers and Davis, a member of Frank's team. After the dispute, Davis suggests following them in a vehicle while the others continue on foot to trace Frank's path. As the team closely follows the trails, Davis drives along but suddenly stops to call Miles, their leader. Miles instructs him to secretly assassinate Frank for $500,000. Hearing this, Davis agrees. Meanwhile, Ree and his son drag Frank deeper into the forest as it begins to rain and darken. Frank tries to persuade them to let him go, but they refuse. They eventually reach a hilltop that leads to a dead end. The son reassures his father that the hill isn't as steep as it appears, but the father is hesitant to descend. After some argument, he decides to try, but Frank convinces him that walking down with handcuffs will be tough. Ray removes the cuffs, and they start down the steep hill. After a while, the team reaches the hilltop, but sees no one. Looking down, they can't spot the trio due to the rain and darkness, so they decide to leave. Meanwhile, as the trio descends, the son slips and screams in panic. Fortunately, Frank catches him, preventing a fall. One team member hears the scream and alerts the others, but they dismiss it as a bluff since they see nothing. Frank eventually saves the son from slipping, and they find a cave to rest for the night. As Ree tries to retrieve something from his bag, Frank seizes the chance to grab the gun, leading to a struggle where the gun falls aside. Seeing his father being attacked, the son quickly picks up the gun and aims it at Frank. As police officers arrive to retrieve a sinking car, a reporter shows up to cover the story. Frank is handcuffed again and given food. Meanwhile, his team rests in the forest, and Davis seeks an update on Frank. When informed that Frank is untraceable, he urges them not to give up, surprising the team with his enthusiasm. They agree to resume the search in the morning, believing they can find his trail then. That night, FBI agents, including Miles and an NSA agent, arrive and instruct local officers to transfer the case to the FBI. The next morning, Ray wakes Frank and his son to start their descent down the hill. Simultaneously, the team reaches the hilltop and spots the trio entering the forest. Outside, FBI agents deploy helicopters to search for Frank. The son attempts to signal the choppers but fails, so they continue deeper into the woods. Frank's teammates track them while evading the helicopters. As Ree leads Frank further in, they pause to hydrate. Frank leans against a tree, conversing with Ree while eyeing his gun, trying to stall. However, Ree sees through his ruse and compels him to keep moving. While walking along the path, the son notices a couple bathing by the river, prompting them to seek help in contacting the police. The couple, however, declines to get involved after hearing their story. Nevertheless, Ray persuades him to join, and they venture deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, a chopper surveys the area, and the pilots see two men in the forest signaling for help. Before landing, they inform the FBI it's a false alarm, just a couple of hikers. Unbeknownst to them, the two men are actually Frank's team members. As one pilot exits to help, Davis pulls out a knife to stab him, while the other team member shoots at the other pilot in the chopper. They then raid the chopper to locate Frank. Meanwhile, Frank, Ree, and the new crew continue deeper into the forest and encounter a marine blocking their path. Fortunately, there's a bridge to cross to the other side. After crossing, Ree suddenly has an idea, so he hands the gun to his son and instructs him to shoot Frank if he dares to move. Then, together with the traveling couple, he destroys the bridge to stop Frank's team from catching up. As the bridge collapses, they hear a distant chopper, thinking it's the police. They shout and wave to signal their location. Unbeknownst to them, the chopper is piloted by Davis and a member of Frank's team. Spotting Frank, Davis aims to kill him, but the chopper shakes, causing him to miss and hit one of the couple. Seeing this, Ree quickly pulls his son to safety from the bullets. Frank realizes he's been betrayed and flees into the forest. After ensuring his son is safe, Ray pursues Frank. The team members, noticing this, open fire on both men, stopping the chopper and pursuing them on foot. One member finds Ray in the forest and fires multiple shots, believing Ray is dead. However, Ree suddenly rises and kills him. Meanwhile, Frank runs towards his trusted team in the chopper for help, but Ree shoots at the chopper, blocking his escape. Ree then takes Frank into the forest to reunite with his son and the female couple. After resting, they venture deeper into the woods and find an abandoned house. They rush in to search for a way to contact the police, but find nothing and decide to spend the night there. Meanwhile, Frank's teammates are still searching for him. After researching the forest online, they find out there's an abandoned house hidden in the woods. Ray feels uneasy in the house, so he hands his gun to Sandra, the female member of the team, instructing her to keep an eye on Frank while he explores the area. Observing this, Frank convinces Ray to take off his handcuffs, warning that his teammates might kill him otherwise. He promises to spare Ray and his son if they free him, but Ray declines the offer. That night, as the FBI helicopter scans the region, Frank's teammates discover the abandoned house and quickly surround it. However, Ray notices their approach and warns the others. In response, one team member proposes to spare their lives if they release Frank. Cornered, Ray decides to let Frank go and removes the handcuff from him. Suddenly, one of Frank's men appears inside the house and violently strikes Ray's son with a gun. Enraged, Ray retaliates and kills the man. Amid the chaos, the other team members begin firing at the abandoned house. The choppers in the area quickly detect the gunfire and approach for a closer inspection. One of Frank's men brandishes a dagger and charges into the house to confront Ray. Observing the struggle between the two men, Sandra intervenes by shooting and killing the assailant. Meanwhile, Frank has Ray's son hostage and attempts to flee the abandoned house. Davis sees him and tries to execute him under Miles' orders, but the chopper's light causes him to miss. As the chopper lands next to the house, Frank escapes with Ray's son. The following day, the FBI rescues Ree and Sandra from the woods, vowing to locate Frank to save Ray's son. Later, an NSA agent contacts Davis, reprimanding him for not killing Frank. After he apologizes, she commands him to find and eliminate both Frank and Ray's son, as well as Ray, to cover up their secrets. At home, while Ree watches the news, he hears a reporter mention the assassination of a billionaire's son and that the billionaire's father will be at the burial. Ree quickly connects the dots, realizing that Frank's next target is the billionaire's father. He attempts to inform the local police of his concerns, but they dismiss it as a bluff. Feeling exasperated, Ree resolves to take action. He arrives at the burial of the billionaire's son and surveys the area for any sign of Frank. As he suspected, Frank is there with a sniper rifle, ready to kill the billionaire father. Just as he prepares to pull the trigger, he hears footsteps behind him and turns to find Ree standing there. As Ree tries to plead for his son's release, Davis suddenly fires at them but misses. This leads Frank to realize that Davis is out to kill him, prompting him to quickly hide in the forest. He stealthily approaches Davis and kills him. Now that Davis is dead, Frank aims his sniper at the billionaire father, only to find that the burial is over and the man has left. Feeling disappointed, Frank attempts to stalk his target, but Ray intercepts him and begs for his son's release. Frank then gives him the key to the hotel room where his son is held captive. Ree rushes over to the hostel with police to find his son healthy and well. A few days later, as the NSA agent buys coffee, Frank suddenly walks up to her and warns her against killing Ray and his son. 2 weeks later, as Ree enjoys a barbecue party with his son and girlfriend Sandra, he hears a radio report that the billionaire has died in a boating accident. Upon hearing this, he realizes that Frank has completed his second mission,